Okay, this is lesson 51, multiplying by two-digit numbers. I think you've probably already done this, but let's talk a little bit more about it. We're going to use the term distributive property, so that might be new to some of you, or at least a review. So when you have 43 times 12, so I have two-digit numbers, that's exactly the same thing as 43 times 10 and 43 times 2. If I just add them together, I'm going to get the same here. But when I do multiplication by two-digit numbers, I don't really have to do two separate problems. So I'm going to write my problem. I usually put the number with the most digits on top. Like if I was doing 1,439 times 12, I would put the one with the 4 digits on top. Just makes it easier to do this method. You don't have to, but it's a lot easier. But we're not doing that now. Okay, so I have my problem written down. First thing I'm going to do is multiply the ones in the bottom times the ones in the top. Okay, so 2 times 3 is 6. I make sure I write that 6 directly under the 2, under what I'm multiplying by. Okay, then I'm going to do the ones times the tens in the next column. So 2 times 4 is 8. I'm going to write it directly beneath the 4. That 1 should be, I really should do a better job lining up. That 1 and that 4 should be in the same column. You know how I do with division and setting columns up? You could probably do the same thing with multiplication, and I probably should have. Okay, so I've done my ones and I've done my tens. Now I got to deal with that 1 in the tens column right here in the second number. So I'm going to put a placeholding 0 here. Not everybody does, because that tells me I'm really multiplying by 10, right? So I'm going to take my 1 in the tens place and multiply by the ones. So 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 4 is 4. So I'm multiplying by that 1, so that 3 goes directly under there. The 4 starts shooting off to the left a little bit, and that's okay, because I'm really saying 10 times 3 is 30, and 10 times 40 is 400. Okay, so then I can just add 6, 8, 3 is 11, carry the 1, 5, 16, right? So that's pretty easy. Again, not everybody puts a 0 there. If you get confused, put it there. If you don't put it there. It doesn't matter. But the thing that does matter is keeping everything lined up properly. Otherwise, you're going to get confused. Okay. Example 2 says that a restaurant chain purchased 95 pounds of potatoes for each of its 26 locations. About how many were purchased altogether? Well, that about gives us a lot of information about what we need to do, doesn't it? Remember, if it says about, then we're going to estimate. We don't have to have an exact number. So I'm going to round my 95 pounds and round my 26 locations. And then I can multiply, and that will make it much easier, right? So let's round 95 I'm going to look at my first place here, and I'm going to mark it. I'm going to look next door. Is that 5 or more? Yes. So I'm going to add 1 more to that, and it rounds to 100. I'm going to mark my first place on the left. It's my tens place. Look next door. Is that 5 or greater? Yes. So I'm going to add 1 more to that. Okay. So I'm going to now multiply 100 times 30. You know, when I'm multiplying a bunch of zeros, I can just count the zeros. So I've got 3 zeros, 1, 2, 3, and 3 times 1 is 3. And that just makes sense, doesn't it? You can do that in your head. 100 times 30 is 3,000. But counting zeros is a handy way to do that. Okay, example 3 gets a little trickier. At 35 cents each, so that's how you would read that, $0.35. It's 35 cents. What is the cost of 2 dozen pencils? Okay, remember how I said I like to put the one with the biggest digits on, or most digits on top? So even though that's a smaller amount, and that's 2 dozen. I put it on top. Okay, so when I have a decimal, and the book doesn't tell you this, but it's really important, I'm going to put a little line after all the numbers that are behind a decimal. So how many are there? 1, 2. I'm going to put little lines down here, okay? And I know in my answer, I'm going to have 2 numbers behind a decimal. So now we can ignore that. Let's pretend like the decimal doesn't exist now that I've acknowledged it. So we're going to multiply the ones times the ones. So 5 times 4 is 20. I carry the 2 over there. 4 times 3 is 12, 13, 14. I'm going to carry the 1. 4 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1, right? Okay, so let's go do the tens place. I'm going to put my place holding 0. Can't forget that. Because remember, I'm going to start writing right beneath the number I'm dealing with, the 2. So 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6 plus 1. I don't have to carry anything there. 2 times 0 is 0. So since it's on the front, I don't have to add that. I could. Doesn't matter. I'll go ahead and put it on there. Okay, so 0 plus 0, 4 plus 0, 7 plus 1, and it's on the front. Okay, now remember I have 2 places that I have to have behind a decimal. So my decimal is going to go right in front of those 2 places. And usually you don't say, oh, I have $8.40. You would just say $8.40. Right? So the decimal part is the tricky part on that. We did have to carry some, so hopefully you guys are pretty comfortable with that. We may have to practice on that. Okay, example 4, Benito wants to multiply 35 by 20 plus 4 using the distributive property, and I forgot you were supposed to capitalize it. Show his 2 choices, then find each answer. Okay, so what's the distributive property? A number times the sum of 2 addends is equal to the sum of that number times each individual addend. Does that kind of sound like Charlie Brown? Wah, 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 wah. Let's see if we can figure it out. So a number times the sum of 2 addends. So let's say I have 2, 3, and 4. So a number times the sum of 2 addends. So what's the sum of 3 and 4? 7. So 2 times 7 equals 14 is equal to the sum of that number times each individual addend. Okay, so I'm going to say 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. Oops. Messiest handwriting ever, huh? Okay, so what's 2 times 3? 6. 2 times 4 is 8. What's 6 plus 8? So in other words, it doesn't matter if I add them up first or if I multiply first, as long as I do it in the right order. I shouldn't say it doesn't matter, but I get the same answer when I use the distributive property. Okay, so let's look back at Benito. So 35 by 20 plus 4. Okay, so I can either do 35 times 20 plus 35 times 4, or I can do 35 times 24. What's going to be easier? Kind of depends. You maybe do those in your head. You got to know how to do both this particular way for this lesson, but sometimes it's faster to do the distributive property either way. So let's go ahead and do this one first. I'm going to do the ones column first. 4 times 5 is 0. Carry the 2. 4 times 3 is 12. 13, 14. I have to add the part I carried. Place holding 0. 2 times 5 is 10. Carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6. 7. And then I'm going to add them. Oh, 840. Huh. That's kind of what I did in the other problem, but without the decimals, huh? Okay, so let's do this. 0 times 5 is 0. 0 times 3 is 0. Place holding 0, because now I'm working with the tens column. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 3 is 6, 7. So now I have 700. Let's do this one. 4 times 5 is 20. Carry the 2. 4 times 3 is 12. 13, 14. So 700 plus 140 equals 840. So I get the same answer either way I do it. And that's the distributive property. Okay, good luck on this lesson.